So since we're here, do you think Trump is going to win?
I don't.
The nomination or the
the Republican nomination, maybe. I mean, sure.
I mean, what's the deal though with like having this hope that Rubio will pull it off when he's won nothing? Like he's won one state, I think.
That's just a weird.
Whereas
thing.
like Sanders and Hillary are still like, I mean, Hillary's like ahead but not by a lot.
Hillary's ahead,
and there's still this like narrative like Bernie Sanders' campaign's going to end any day now. Like, how is that really?
No, I mean Hillary Sanders is ahead of Bernie Sanders by more than Hillary Sanders. So Hillary has, I don't remember how many, but it's like she has like 1,200 delegates right now.
No, she doesn't.
She totally does.
No, I don't think so.
She totally does.
I think she has about in the 600s and he's in the 400s.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure she's over 1,000 delegates.
Can
I look this up on my phone?
Yeah, look it up. But I think you're wrong. So look at the actual delegates, not the super delegates.
So if you're looking at actual delegates,
not super delegates, because super delegates are subject to change, from what I understand. I'm not an expert on how the conventions work because primaries are ridiculous.
But what do you think the chances that the majority of those super delegates are going to just swap over to Sanders?
If he gets more of the popular vote, if he wins more delegates, they will switch over. I think someone is going to tell me that I'm wrong, but I want to understand that's how it works.
I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I can tell that the bars are a lot closer.
Right. That's what I mean.
So another thing,
because people are saying, oh, she has this many delegates when they include the super delegates. When if you just look at just the delegates, meaning just the popular vote, which is what the delegates are closer to, it's
closer.
It's closer.
So that's another thing though with the conspiratorial stuff, and this isn't legitimately conspiratorial, but Bernie Sanders is a super delegate.
Okay.
And suddenly there was kind of like this big movement of like Hillary's winning on this awful technicality that's just a conspiracy of the Democratic Party to like shut out Bernie Sanders. And
no, I don't think that. I think
well, I'm not saying you think that, but I'm saying that I have seen plenty of memes on the internet of like this is just a Democratic establishment thing, and I'm like, I mean that's fine if you want to change the superdelegate thing, but like Bernie Sanders was clearly with the notion of superdelegates.
Yes. However,
before he ran for president.
Because until the 60s, it was just the parties just chose the nominees, and the people didn't get a say in the matter whatsoever.
Right.
And then there's been a gradual, more progressive move towards democratizing these primaries. So yeah, Bernie Sanders is probably still involved with the way it is now, but I don't know if he's gone on record or anything. But I
don't think he has. I don't think he's said anything.
Especially with the way that these primaries have just been a mess. Like the Nevada caucus, the majority of people who would have showed up to vote for Sanders were working because it's a state that most people work on the weekends. They work overnight. You know, the casino industry employs most people in Las Vegas, and it's a 24-hour industry.
Yeah.
So the people who showed up to the caucuses were old, retired people who were going to vote for Hillary anyway. So Sanders was polling really close to Hillary in Nevada, but when it came to caucus day, he didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
So this year has been one of those years where we look at, well, these primaries aren't really, and these caucuses, they're not very democratic, and that happens. That happens all the time because they were never set up to be democratic, and they're not democratic now, but they've been moving gradually towards there.
So part of that's really interesting to me, I think, is that this notion of making the nominations of politicians more democratic actually has a lot of roots. I mean, obviously roots come from the progressive era.
Yeah.
But there's a major sense of personality politics, and that's very much the legacy of that. So that's why when people talk a lot about Teddy Roosevelt, it's like Teddy Roosevelt was very convinced of his own personality, and he was very, very popular in the United States. Like he was tremendously popular, and he knew it. Yeah. And so that's why he knew if we make this thing more democratic, like I could be the king of America.
Yeah.
And it was pushing, I think, rightfully pushing back against party machines and different things because those did have an element of corruption. But I do think there's a fundamental flaw in personality politics in the United States because at the end of the day, you really are voting for a party. So when you vote for a president, the political reality is that you're voting for a party.
Yeah. Because
you're talking about all the different branches of government. So, and that's one of the things that's hard, especially for Democrats in like Congress, is that like the Democrats don't control Congress because people aren't voting for the Democrats in Congress. Yeah. And that's actually what really matters at the end of the day, is that if you have more Democrats than Republicans in Congress, then more Democratic legislation will get passed.
Right.
And so it really does transcend the local politics, even though you're voting for a local representative. And it's the same with the Senate. So with the problem is that when I look at the presidency, I actually see the same thing. And that's why when you see a lot of people that are like, Bernie Sanders, if he doesn't win, like, I can't in good conscience vote for Hillary, I'm like, okay, no, screw you.
Right.
Because if you don't vote for Hillary, like, I get that you don't like her personality or whatever, but you're not voting for personality, you're voting for which political party will hold the executive branch. And I think that in other systems, you have parliamentary systems, different things, where it literally, like, a party is who you vote for, and then they select who the representative is.
Now, see, that's why in parliamentary systems, it works better that way. And this is where I think a radical idea is that, like, we should probably just move towards
we should reform the Constitution.
Like, we should totally reform the Constitution,
which will never happen. But I want that.
Like, when America, like, goes and promotes democracy around the world, they don't promote the idea of having a really strong executive like we have here. They promote the idea of, like, moving towards a more parliamentary system, because really the presidency kind of has, I mean, it's supposed to be a checks and balance system, and in a lot of ways it is, but really it's kind of a focus on power because of that personality politics. Because in theory, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be electing the party, but in practice, there's a huge difference between Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, or George W. Bush and
I don't know,
whoever because it does become, because when they have that executive power, it does become a little bit more of a unilateral.
I don't know
force.
I think when you think about politics since World War II especially, but even before then, every executive, every president has governed as a moderate force in their party, because they've always had to deal, even when they held. So when Barack Obama, he had both houses of Congress, and he still passed a healthcare bill that was the definition of centrist moderate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a really strong case to be made that, like, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as the executive, you are both representing your party, and you're acting as the mediator between both parties.
Right.
And so that's why the things that make me nervous about Bernie Sanders is that when you bring up a lot of the issues of, but how's he going to do these different things? What, how's he going to get away with this? Like, problems in, universal education for publicly funded schools.
Yeah.
And somebody says, like, well, that's actually, like, kind of a clumsy way to do it because of this, and how's it going to pass through that? And people, they tend to focus on, but that doesn't matter because Bernie Sanders is, like, awesome. Like, Bernie Sanders has not changed his positions in, like, 1,000 years, and he's the most consistent politician ever. And I'm always like, that is so wonderful. And I personally feel like that matters so much less than you do, because in the end, when the person's in the executive office, they don't just kind of get to do what they want.
In that
know what I mean?
In that case, why not Bernie Sanders?